A lot of the thousands of photographs that were taken from these people, you said they remain locked up and hidden from society. Is it,
well, not intentionally. It wasn't like they were trying to hide them. It's just that.
Why is that though? When I mean, these documented the wars that were going on. Yet you know, South Africa, who went through apartheid, they were in the media, constant media coverage. Why Eritrea, who's also a country who is at war, why more focus, you know, media attention on South Africa versus Eritrea?
You want?
I mean, just the way I look at it, when you compare South Africa and Eritrea, Eritrea is a newly found country and there's not that much interest or known about Eritrea compared to South Africa. So, and sometimes even you have documents, you need to have the access to put it out, you know what I'm saying? I don't know much about photography, but I know, like, if I'm in Ethiopia, if I have, you know, some pictures, for me to put it out the world at the time, if I don't have no computers or the access to it, it's going to be hard to kind of like put it out, you know. Yeah. But then when you look at South Africa, it's more modern and have more connection to the world compared to Eritrea does, I think.
That's right. That's exactly it. I think that, like, South Africa was pretty much already part of the world media, global media market, where Eritrea, and it's also about priorities. I mean, Eritrea is just trying to get on their feet as a new nation. And then it's not something they're thinking about marketing their photographs or you know, sharing their images, these particular group of images that these fighters had taken in the field. It's just a different way of looking at things. We have, like, for example, in the West, I think, especially in the US and Europe, we have a much more sort of a commercial, materialistic culture where we tend to want to wheel and deal more and buy and sell things and collect and own things. And we might see those photographs as some sort of valuable artifacts, whereas if you're there creating them at the time, it's just some documentation, which is what they really were taken as, documentation. And the time will come when, you know, the people that need to see them will see them. I didn't want to give the impression that they were like somebody was hiding them. It's just that it's just not a priority, I think, to... I've actually sent an email over there. I should do more, but I'd like to go back sometime maybe and see if I can work with the Eritrean government and get those photographs at least into a book form or have an exhibition, just so people can see this incredible photography that was done by these very valiant photojournalists. Just for that and that alone, you know, for the sake of promoting good photojournalism.
Now, I know while you were working in Africa, you worked for UNICEF, and you said that they kind of gave you a sense of photography guidelines as far as taking photographs. We actually have a photograph here that you took, and you actually said that UNICEF did not like this photograph. Why?
Well, I wouldn't say UNICEF didn't like it. Actually, the communications officer in Luanda in Angola, I went back to Angola this past summer and did a little consultancy work for them. The people in the office, they loved it. But the person who was sort of in charge of, responsible for taking the photographs and using them in their marketing campaign for UNICEF felt that the photograph was perhaps too harsh, that the way that the girl was dressed, there's some tears in her shirt, things like that, that they have sort of, they do have the guidelines, and they don't want to, I think what they're doing is they're maybe overcompensating a little. They're trying to go to great lengths now to sort of swing the pendulum back in the other direction and say, we only want to show, you know, sort of pictures that aren't so bleak. Because there's something that's called, I know we're running out of time, but there's something that's been called donor fatigue. After all the photographs of the Ethiopian famine and so on, donors get tired of seeing that kind of stuff. So they kind of, I think it's more of a marketing concern that UNICEF has there, that they just want to find the right kind of photographs. Maybe they tested these photographs out on some people in Iowa somewhere or something, and found out that these are the photographs that they're going to respond better to. You know, they're not too harsh and they don't look too rich, they don't look too poor, they're somewhere in the middle. They tried to find a balance, I think, which photographs are going to, you know, evoke enough sympathy that people are going to still give donations, but without painting Africa in too negative of a light. I think that's what they're trying to do, and they're doing a pretty good job of it.
Biniyam, there seems to be this constant struggle over how Africans see their world and how others see it. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's applied for everybody. I mean, the way I saw America and the way Americans saw themselves might not be the same. Because when I was in Ethiopia, the way I saw America is New York, you know, and pretty much all Caucasian. That's how I pictured it come out here, very diverse and different, you know. Same thing I think in Africa. It's just that a lot of time Africans have a hard time because there's a lot of negative, and sometimes we don't see it because I'm not always living in famine. So that's the part a lot of Africans kind of, like, I guess, have fight over. But everybody, some things you misunderstood, but there's a lack of information about Africa. So, like, a lot of people ask me, like, you know, how was the war when you were little? And I'm like, I have never seen a war. I was in the city, so I've never seen, like, really fights. But it doesn't mean there did exist a war before, but I didn't see it. You know what I'm saying? How was the famine? I didn't see the famine. It's just that people just see one thing, and that's just to kind of, like, generalize it, and that's the part that a lot of Africans have a battle with.
How do these sort of fixed media images of your homeland make you feel about Western media?
I mean, it's tough because, I mean, I get to the point where, when I was in high school, that everybody keep asking me whether I have a house or whether I live in a tree, that I got tired of explaining to everybody, and I keep saying, you know what, I live in a tree, I have a lion. It's like, because everybody else, I feel like nobody knows. Yeah. And it's very difficult, you know. And even the whole idea that, oh, you know, you're not that skinny, you know, I didn't know you guys have food, like, because I'm Ethiopian and stuff. So, you know, these type of things, and I wonder for one of the most powerful, richest country that have so much access for, like, you know, information, have so little about the world. It's kind of like, you know.
It's a little disturbing.
Yeah.
You know, when I lived in Africa, and I lived there for a long time, like 8 years, and mostly in Kenya, I noticed that in the newspapers there, in the Kenya newspapers, there's a lot of news about the U.S.
Yeah.
But when you look at the LA Times, you might find one story about Africa every day, maybe.
Yeah.
A short little blurb or something. Something happened in the Congo or something.
I mean, yeah.
Not a lot of depth of coverage, though. Not a lot of depth of coverage.
No.
So when all people get is a steady diet of stereotypes, that's what you're going to get. That's the result you're going to get. Michael Maron's book is a good example of how the relief industry gets sort of co-opted into whatever fighting is going on and manipulated quite effectively by governments and rebel groups who use the food that's given for their own troops or whatever. There's a lot of different, you know, shades to the story, but they don't have their own agencies, but they do work together sometimes with the relief agencies, or they end up becoming, you know, intertwined.
I want to thank you for joining me on the show. You're watching On Point. I'm Sara Van Horne. How about the entertainment industry? I know a lot of the movies don't actually star people from the actual country. It's Americans that are starring in these roles. What do you think?
I think in one way, starring American actors is good because it kind of have more, for popularity reason, people will see it because of specific actor or whatever. At least people know about it. You know, that's the one way I see it is if it's the blood diamonds, at least we know where the diamonds come from, so then people have a better understanding of it. So in that aspect, it's good.